that there's some inequity in this current legislation. However, the bill has been passed. And so now the only way we can fix it is in the rulemaking. And they've hired a temporary director to recruiting a temporary director to run it. And I assume there'll be an experienced cannabis expert. We hope we can take and recruit and find an African American, but that's not likely to happen. But also we have to be like the Indians. We have to get an early start. So what we are trying to demand is the rulemaking allow us to get licenses, identify the number of licenses that African Americans can get, so they can run vertically integrated cannabis operations, from growing to packaging it and distributing and retail. That's what we want. That's what we have to demand. And the community has to understand this is a $1 billion business. And we're going to be cut out unless we stand up and hold those accountable. You can't talk equity, diversity, inclusion. And I said I was there, and Angela was there when the governor, when it signed the bill. I heard him speak to an Indian leader and say, "You all are going to make a lot of money out of this." And I don't resent the fact that they got early start.
Yeah,
but
I got several questions. Let me go to you, Bill, for questions. First of all, thank you for this background, number one. But my first question was, how is it that what was presented as an excellent bill got gutted the night before? And I'm raising the question because I also know how politics work at the legislature and how everything gets fixed at the 11th hour, the 11th and a half hour sometimes. And what you may think was in place when you went to sleep may be totally different when you wake up in the morning. That happened here, it seems to me. Talk about that process. What was in it and what got left out, first of all?
Angela, let me call on let's have a dialogue here. Angela, you know what was in the first bill that was drafted much better than I. But I read the first bill, and it was clearly, it didn't give us an advantage, but it equaled the playing field, if you know what I meant. So that bill, go ahead, Angela.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's a couple of things. So there's an equity component to the bill, and that's really important, the social equity component. There are still some of the social equity components in the bill that are in there, but like Bill said, if there isn't the financial support backing those social equity allowances for licenses, for example, then it isn't really going to do us good if we can give out social equity licenses to Black businesses, but they don't have the financial support. I'll get back to that because there are some grants that have been written into the bill, and it's going to be during the rulemaking that's going to determine who and how we can access those grant funds. There also was about $30 million in grants set aside for cannabis related businesses. And I think people have to be aware of that because this is where Al, your program and all kinds of other community efforts to educate the people will come into play. So when we say that the bill is one of the most progressive in the country, there are still some elements. That's where the progression comes from and where people like to take credit that it's a progressive bill. But where we are severely, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, so Bill English, I was asking to describe
where we are,
the process. Go ahead, Angela, you first.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, so the part where the bill gets a lot of criticism and where Bill is talking about is that the bill initially started out favoring small businesses. So, for example, if you had over 30,000 square feet or 60,000 square feet, or what would be considered a bulk license, then those licenses were put off for 5 years to focus on the smaller micro businesses, the lower resource communities and businesses so that they could get a good head start and get a solid footing in the industry before it's taken over by large, what they call MSOs. Those are multi-state operators. They have large investment dollars. They get lots of money from places that we would never be able to access it from. And they can do things like buy up real estate and take up all the best locations, or, you know, they can do things that we can't do in terms of providing resources to their own businesses and their own folks to get a head start. And what also happened is that the medical companies that are already licensed, that have had the only license for the last 7 to 8 years in Minnesota, are still allowed to keep their footprint, to keep operating, and then also to expand their footprint as the industry rolls open. So as they've, you know, already had such a great advantage, and like Bill said, they don't have outlets in our community. They don't provide specific consultation and medical sources to the things that our community suffers from and the things that we're concerned about that inflicts us most, like sickle cell and those kinds of things. So they're being allowed to continue their footprint, to keep their branding, to keep their customers, while most of us who also, probably some of us who are better at growing cannabis and serving our community's needs, are still sitting on our hands, sitting on our investments, and still waiting for the chance to be able to operate and serve our communities.
How have you aligned your business so far? You're a cannabis grower right now, right?
I'm a licensed hemp. I've been growing hemp at a licensed facility at our farm here for the last 3 years, and so we have quite a bit of
between hemp and cannabis. That's a hemp cannabis 101. Make the distinction so people know.
Yes, I think that's super important. You know, the short and easy answer is hemp is marijuana, cannabis's sober cousin. They come from the same plant genome, which is cannabis is actually the entire scientific name for the plant. There's a hemp side to cannabis and there's a marijuana side to cannabis. The marijuana side has the higher THC in it. The hemp side has more CBD, but has absolutely less than 0.3% THC in it. So they're very similar plants scientifically. They do a lot of the same things, but except one has a higher cannabinoid of THC in it.
Are you in position then to shift from being a hemp grower to a is it cannabis or marijuana grower? Is that the right language or not?
Yep, you got it. You got it. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I did when I decided to become a full-time farmer, I actually spent a summer out on the West Coast and grew medical cannabis for patients. It was marijuana, and I learned on a teaching farm how to grow it. And so when I came back to Minnesota, that's when I decided to become a licensed hemp farmer, because that was the only license that was available at the time, and grow my practice and grow my cultivation strategy so that I could be on par with all the rest of the growers around the country. And I feel like, yes, we have built out a pretty solid infrastructure, and I'd put my grower team of cannabis growers up against any growers in the state to grow a really high quality medicinal plant.
I'm so impressed. Number one, I'm smiling. For those who are listening on radio, I'm so impressed with you, Angela, for both the vision and also the hard work, you know, and the integrity that you bring to this work and the clarity that you bring to it. So building this comeback, comment on what we said so far, and let's keep exploring, because I still want to teach the lesson about how stuff changes overnight and why.
Because when I was
being gored. I mean, it seems like our ox got gored in the 11th hour. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all. And what surprised us was, while they did put in, and Angela identified some of the social equity parts of the bill, it's almost impossible, in my view, in my lived experience, should say, for us to really get into the business in any kind of reasonable way so we can really grow wealth. What we want is an equal playing field. Let me be very specific to this. We want to be able to be vertically integrated. Angela, if she chooses to, can only grow. She can package and distribute, and she could have a retail store or several retail stores under a license. The same with Anthony Newby, who couldn't join us today. He has a flourishing CBD business, and his products are well known and are quite good. And I'm talking about the CBD side, because I've used them, and my wife has used them. Many people are using them. But the point I'm making here is that the bill was changed, and it was changed to benefit the large, that's what she called them, out of state monopolies who come in and buy up the things, and then they really own and operate the business. Look at Washington, D.C., for example. There's a classic example of the big boys making the money, and a few brothers and sisters have some retail outlets. And they're in D.C., of course, they're not growing it. And they can't grow it outside in Virginia or Maryland, where most of the farmland is. So they're stuck there. So I'm saying in Minnesota.
So DC is all imported? Is that what it is? All the product is imported into
DC? Yes.
How do you do that, crossing state lines in states that don't allow marijuana growth?
Well, first of all, they can buy the dispensary. Angela, can you respond to that one? Because I don't know how they get it, but I do know they get it.
Well, it is technically illegal to cross state lines with cannabis, marijuana, traveling, but some companies have done it and they have gotten away with it. It would be illegal for you or I definitely to do it, but there are some folks that do get away with it. But I'd say the most ways that these MSOs, these multi-state operators, really get the advantages, they buy up all the space and they buy up all the retail.
And we lost bandwidth for a second, but go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, no, but thank you, Angela. But my point here, Al, I think what's critical for our community. Number one, Stephanie Barrage, which I will ask you to come on to the show with the woman who is currently the interim director, executive director of that. And she's putting together a 51-member advisory committee where we need representation. In the rule changes, they could give us early licensure, which would allow us to gain ground before the market is saturated. And it puts us on par with and it equals the playing field, balances the playing field little. It will always be tilted to the very wealthy, because that's America. That's Babylon, as I call it. And so my point is that we have an opportunity now in the rulemaking to make sure that we get a more opportunity to be vertically integrated and to operate both farming, growing, packaging and distributing, and retail selling of cannabis, both medical and recreational cannabis. We can do both. And the native communities, they can do that already. And all this first,
at the beginning about the native community, I mentioned that they announced at Red Lake, I think was that they'd be operational with recreational sales starting August 1. What does that mean? Does it mean they're selling only on their reservation, or does it mean they have a pipeline to distribute throughout the state? How does that work? Do you know?
Well, let me just say this much, and I'd like for Angela, if she knows about it. What we know is all of a sudden, some stores are showing up with retail operations selling cannabis. Now, how they go to the reservation and buy a pound or two or whatever, and then they can sell it. They can sell it to whomever. So what I'm saying is this, and we don't resent the native people having an opportunity, because this land was their land. But what we don't think is this: we made the economy of this land, and we should have an equal playing field. So give us early licensure. So I would urge you to invite Stephanie Barrage and the and the current executive director to come on and explain to the community what's going on with this thing. We have a right to know. Our tax money is going to be used to support this legislation, and we certainly pay our taxes. And they cannot say we are overrepresented in anything but the punishment for possession and sale of small amounts of cannabis. We're not talking about large cartels. First of all, there's very few black large cartels to begin with.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's where we stand now.
Yeah. So just some more details about the legislation. Angela, you can help me with this. I think, as I understand it, the bill allows people to possess in their possession to buy and sell small amounts without licensure. That means, I'm presuming that means like less than an ounce or 2 ounces of fat. You may know the numbers on it. It also allows individuals to grow, to own on their property 1 or 2 or 5 plants. Walk me through that as you understand it. And I still want to get a clear idea. You said, Bill, that right now people are able to go up to the reservation and purchase marijuana, and it's showing up in the stores right now, or will it show up on August 1?
Well, for August 1, it will be legally showing up.
Okay.
It will be legally showing up. Okay. Right now, as always, there's an underground market. We know it. It's been operating for years. Okay. Just like the cocaine market. You could go to Florida and every other corner was Jesus's bank, where they were laundering cocaine money. It's no different than recreational weed. There's going to be an underground market for it. And once we get licenses, then there's no need for we put like liquor, we put the bootleggers out of business. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's where I'm headed. And as you know me, and as Angela knows me, it's our role as servant leaders to first of all make our community aware. So we're grateful for you to give us this opportunity. You've offered to us to have a campaign. So I want to bring the people who are making the rules to come onto your show and explain to our community. Not only that, we're going to go on a full campaign of working with the Rule Committee. We want people represented on that 51-member advisory committee. Now you think about it. 51 people on a committee. Think about that. That's the largest committee I've ever heard of. Advisory committee. Mm-hmm. Why do you need 51 people, which most of them going to be white, unless we stand up there and be counted for? You know that, and I know that. And so we got to be our representation on that committee adequate, equal to our punishment. So that's the way I see it. And we got to be vertically integrated, and we got to demand that a certain number of those 25 licenses be set aside, if you like, for ADOS people, American descendants of slavery. That's what we want. That's what we should demand. And I think that we deserve that. But that's just my one-man opinion.
Well, listen, Mike V is a regular viewer. He's a friend of mine, a fellow Nubian. We both are active in the project called Narrative in Nubia. He has sent a note saying, the policy we have in place in Boston is that no white dispensary can be opened in a black neighborhood. Only black dispensaries are allowed. And as it turns out, he says, they are the most profitable. Social equity for cannabis legislation is the policy. How does that stack up with what we envision and desire here, Angela and Bill?
Hey, I just want to make sure that I'm way out here in farm country, and sometimes my signal doesn't last that long. So I just want to make sure that I just wanted to correct a few things and say that right now, so as of August 1st, home grow is legal. And that means that per adult, 8 plants per adult. Each adult can have 8 plants growing in your home, and but 4 of them can be mature. So only 4 can be mature. You can have 8 plants per adult in the home. And then at home, your possession limit is 2 pounds. But if you are traveling, your possession limit is 2 ounces per adult over 21. So
Outside
those
of
are
your
some
house,
important
outside of your house, you
things.
can
And
carry
then
2 ounces.
also outside the house, 2 ounces.
Okay.
And then also technically you're not supposed to be selling. We're not supposed to be selling. So even with those home grows, you can only trade or barter or gift. Those you cannot be in the business of selling your own home grow. That's for personal use, but you can gift it or trade. So those are some of the basic things about, unless you're a dispensary, one of the 2 white-owned dispensaries, the MSOs that are currently operating technically, or on an Indian reservation, you're not supposed to be selling marijuana right now. But I did want to also answer the question. B's point was really important, and I think that hopefully that's what we want. Is we want to have more opportunities for Black businesses to prosper with this plant that we have been carrying on our back, in this industry that we've been carrying on our back for the last 100 years or so.
I muted to sneeze. It might happen anyway, but okay. Well, listen, so about the plant. So where does a consumer purchase seedlings or seeds? How do people interested in having up to 8 plants get those to start their personal collection? How does that happen? Will you be in a position to sell plants to the consumers who want to grow their own, Angela?
Well, I currently at 40 Acre, I've developed my own genetics here up at the farm of hemp. And that is resilient to grow in this location, and it produces really high quality CBD and is really resilient in our really harsh growing environment. And so, yes, when it is allowed, when I am able to, when I get a license, I'll also be able to offer high quality cannabis genetics, seeds and clones and seedlings. But again, that's something that we have to clarify in the rulemaking, because we don't really have access to that market yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fact. And that's why this rulemaking, Al, is so important. And our community has got to be aware. So you can go online and apply to be on the committee. And I think their applications are still open, if I'm not mistaken. And we need to make sure that we are fully represented. Yeah. Those of us, I don't want to be on the committee. I want to be able to be constructively critical of the committee if we're not equally represented, or represented based on our participation in the previous illegal use of marijuana, of recreational marijuana.
Well, a question I have still, Bill, is why does the legislation as it exists specify 25 licenses? What does that mean? Does it mean also that each license has the capacity to subdivide into X number of retail locations? What do 25?
I don't know that. I can't answer that question.
Angela, do you have
I can't answer that question.
Okay.
Angela, do you know it?
Not sure she's hearing us near internet. Listen, guess what? We're out of time.
Okay.
Bill, this has been a wonderful conversation. Angela, a wonderful conversation. As I said, we're so proud of you. And my objective as a communicator, as a broadcaster here, is to ensure that our community has the maximum amount of information that allows us to make the best financial wealth building decisions for our people. I know that's something that you both stand for as well. Well, I'm Al McFarlane. Thank you for being a part of the conversation with Al McFarlane. Stay tuned. Love to have your ideas, your thoughts on questions we should raise about the legalization of cannabis and the growth of that industry, how it will affect our community, our people. Thanks to Angela. Thanks to Bill. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Al.